Hi guys, and welcome back to the LINA BHUDIA podcast. Please make sure you subscribe, like, comment and hit that notification button for more from me. So I want to talk about the return of TV shows now that lockdown measures have been relaxed long enough for TV production to basically recommence and make a return to our television screens. So on Sunday night, TOWIE had a 10-year celebration ahead of their return this weekend. So basically they had some of the old cast and current cast actually sit down and just talk through some of the best clips from their 10-year history of TOWIE. Now, I can't believe that they have been on our screens for 10 years. I remember watching the first one and it doesn't feel like it was 10 years ago. It's crazy. It does not feel like it's been that long. But as they went over some of the episodes and some of the really old ones were showing with kind of Amy and her vajazzle and Mark and what was his name? Mark and Arj and their kind of bromance relationship. It really brought back some old memories and I was like, bloody hell, it really has been that long. That's crazy, especially for a show that at the time we didn't think would even last past a year, because quite frankly, TOWIE isn't a good show. But I kind of feel like that's what makes it work. In like a really weird way. Like it's light entertainment, like super light entertainment, and it's basically an opportunity for the viewer to get lost in other people's dramas. But as a show, it's less than perfect. It's basically super dramatized and over the top. And I know people from Essex who absolutely do not behave or talk like the cast members of TOWIE. So, like, for me personally, based on the people that I know who live in that sort of area, it's not a representation of Essex. And it doesn't give the good people of Essex a good name, particularly because the show portrays people from Essex as being stupid and airheads on the show with limited vocabulary, and they're all just creating their own vocab. Like, they're just the whole vajazzle or the ream, I don't know, maybe they were just trying to create trends, because ultimately if you can create a trend and make yourself go viral, that's what brings more attention, right? So maybe it's all been done just for that effect of, you know how some people do the whole, well, if you can't get famous, become infamous. Like, just don't be indifferent, basically. So maybe that's what the show's producers have kind of played off there. And I don't know, I guess we do live in a world now of the Kardashians and YouTube daily vloggers. So getting a glimpse into other people's lives, that's entertaining to the public, right? And it's opened the doors and changed the lives of the people who decide to share their lives at whatever expense. So the cast of TOWIE get mocked so much, but damn, like, they live good. Like, these guys live good. Have you seen some of the houses that they live in? Like, and some of them have gone on to do other things outside of the show that they would never, ever in a million years have had the opportunity to do without TOWIE, which a couple of them did actually say on the 10-year anniversary show. I think it was Sam Fryers and her sister, because they have their own, like, I think it's Mummy Diaries reality TV show. So I don't know, I suppose it was good to see that they are kind of reflective like that and self-aware and know what the show has done for them. So I was watching the show, the 10-year honour, and honestly, it was a little disappointing not to see people like Mark Wright join. Kind of like a really old school cast member who kind of got things kicked off with his relationship with, I think it was Lauren Goodyear. It was a shame not to see her on there as well. Megan McKenna, I feel like she's been quite a big name and had quite a few epic scenes on the show, so it would have been great to have her on too. But I suppose they couldn't have everyone on, so it was still good. It was good nonetheless, and it was a good idea to honour their 10 years, especially because no one, like I said at the start of the journey, the TOWIE journey, thought that they would last past a year. So 10 years, good on them. Good little nod to the show ahead of their return this weekend. Will I tune in to watch? Yes, I bloody will. I do get suckered into trashy TV shows, and TOWIE is definitely one that I like to watch. I kind of have that internal battle of knowing that it's a really terrible show, but still I want to watch it. Like, you know, when you're watching a horror movie and something really gory and horrible is happening and you want to turn away but you just can't. It's kind of like that. Like it's a trashy show, but I love it. It's one of those weird shows. Another show which marks its return is EastEnders. Oh my god, I have missed EastEnders so bloody much. So its return to our screens, for me personally, just feels like another piece of normality returning to me post-lockdown. I'm just so glad that they're back. So they ended on such a great dufter for the very last episode. So the return was always going to be a corker. So the return episode was aired last night. It was a 25-minute episode. They're usually 30 minutes. I thought that they were going to return to 20-minute episodes. I'm pretty sure that's what I read or heard a few weeks ago, but maybe with the lockdown measures being relaxed so much more that they've kind of agreed to do 25-minute shows. So yeah, it was only 5 minutes shorter, but while I was watching it, it felt far more shorter than 5 minutes. I don't know, maybe I was just enjoying the episode more than usual because I've missed it and it was nice to have it back on the screen. It was kind of weird watching it because in every scene I was basically noticing the distance between the cast members. And in one of the scenes there were people in the background wearing masks, so it was quite weird watching it and just seeing how they've incorporated what's been happening into the show. So yeah, it was a great episode, but it was just really weird seeing it in its new socially distanced format. So I was watching it and I don't know if I've missed something, but I was a little bit confused why Ben and Callum haven't been living together in lockdown. Like, don't they live together? I'm sure they lived together before lockdown. I wonder if they separated them in the storyline on purpose so that they could do the socially distanced scenes without it being like, why are they social distancing? They live in the same house. So I thought that was quite weird. Or I wonder if maybe, now that Phil lives on his own, maybe Ben decided to move in with him to keep an eye on him. But then why wouldn't have Callum gone with him? Because living in a house would be better than living in a flat, right, during lockdown. So that's weird. Or unless, like, Callum's a police officer now, so presumably he's carried on working all throughout lockdown. Yeah, that makes more sense. Maybe Ben moved in with Phil to keep Phil company and also to look after him because that's his dad. And Callum decided to stay in the flats because he's a key worker and is still out there mingling with idiots who refuse to social distance and probably more at risk because of his job, and he maybe didn't want to come home and pass it on to everyone else. Maybe that's why, I don't know, but that kind of threw me a little bit. So I also liked on the side of one of the houses, I think it's Ian's, yeah, it was Ian's house. So on the side of the house, they've basically painted a great big mural in honour of Black Lives Matter. And I thought that was a really brilliant gesture by the show, especially given the set it's set in a very diverse parts of London, East London. So yeah, I like that they've been off air but still managed to incorporate life and what's been happening in real life into the show. Like, they do a good job of keeping up with kind of the news and real life events and bring that into the show to make it as real as possible. Like, don't get me wrong, they've definitely had their moments where they've gone over the top with their storylines, but that nod to Black Lives Matter, I liked it. And also Ian's response to it in the show, it was very real of someone who perhaps doesn't like this big gesture but sees it as a political gain for themselves, because there are people out there who don't care about the movement but they still back it as an opportunity. They back it as an opportunity and wouldn't say anything if it didn't get likes or views or good attention. So I thought that was an interesting, like, they didn't kind of give it a big moment in the show. They kind of like touched upon it, so it wasn't like over the top. Look at this, Black Lives Matter. Like, they weren't like trying to really get involved in the movement. It was just a nod to it. And just in that scene with Ian and Kathy where he's going, why do they have to put it on my wall? Oh, I suppose it's good for me, like the man of the community, to have that on my wall, I suppose. And then Kathy was like, how can you say that, when he was kind of questioning why it was on his wall and looking at him like he was a psycho when he decided to spin it and make it look like it made him look good. So just kind of that interaction between mum and son and the varying responses to it, I thought kind of covered the way people have been with this movement and the way that people are treating it. So yeah, I liked it. I thought that was a really good nod to a very important movement, and that's what I like about EastEnders. They managed to incorporate real life events into their show, and sometimes just in the most subtle but yet obvious way. I thought that was really good. So yeah, the duff was great. Basically, Dottie told on Ian, didn't she? She basically told Sharon that it's Ian's fault that Denny died on the boat. And that's where the duff ended. It ended on Sharon, that 3-second pause. So I'm wondering how Ian is going to try and wriggle himself out of this one. I guess we will find out tonight. Or maybe we've already found out, depending on when I upload this podcast. It's quite early in the morning that I'm recording this. Hopefully I'll be able to edit it and get it up tonight. If not, definitely tomorrow. If you guys could see me right now, oh my god, the things that I do to try and get the best recording. So it's really annoying because I live in a house with other people, there's noise, there was an alarm going off outside somewhere. So what I've done is basically cooped myself up inside the biggest section of my wardrobe. I've got like a great big blanket kind of covered over me. I'm trying to absorb as much kind of, I don't know what the technical term is, but I'm trying to cover up as much kind of that buzzy noise that you get in the background. And hopefully this has soundproofed my surroundings as much as possible, and I can get a really good recording out of this. I hope so anyway. It'll be really annoying if I have to re-record this because the sound is off. But yeah, this is how I record. I don't have a studio, you guys. I would love to be able to have somewhere a bit more formal and a bit more set up to record, but I don't. So this is what we're going to this is how I am for now. This is the way that things roll. Um, and also, I don't know why this has just popped into my head. I'm pretty sure that the fourth, the fourth season of Stranger Things was supposed to start production, right? And I'm pretty sure that they were delayed. So that's another show that I really cannot wait to return. It's on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, you have to watch it. Even if you're not into the whole mystical kind of, if you know about the show but you haven't actually watched it because you're not into like that mystic type of creatures and all that sort of thing. I'm not either, but I still really like the show, so it's definitely worth watching. And the last season ended so well. One of the main characters has allegedly been killed off, but we now know that he will probably make a return in the next one. But yeah, I just feel like with each season they become more and more cinematic, and the storyline is great, the effects is great, the characters are amazing, really well developed characters. So yeah, that's another show that I can't wait for them to return. I don't know if they've recommenced production. They obviously have access to more CGI type of gear, so hopefully that will make it easier for them to film and do what they need to do to come back with another great show. And another one that I wanted to talk about, which I've made a note of here, is the Friends reunion. That's supposed to have happened by now, but it hasn't because of obviously COVID. I was so ecstatic when I heard about the reunion. I love Friends and I still watch it to this day and still enjoy it even after all these years. And ever since their last episode, there's always been rumours about, will they do a reunion? Won't they do a reunion? So when the news broke that they were going to do a reunion, that was a big moment for Friends fans all around the world. But of course, bloody COVID got in the way. So I'm not sure when they'll do it now, but I'm definitely going to tune into that with great interest when that happens. I kind of feel like, I still think it will be a big deal when they do return, but I kind of feel like the moment has almost passed a bit, because the way it was initially going to happen was they broke the news, everyone will get hyped up, it will die down for a quick moment, and then it will pick back up again when the reunion episode airs. But now it kind of feels like that gap has been much longer than intended. So yeah, I still think it will be amazing. I suppose it's given them more time to plan what they want to do and make sure that it is as amazing as it could possibly be. Can you imagine if they do this reunion and it's just a major flop? Can you imagine? Like, that would be so disappointing after all these years and all this hype about the reunion, and it's not even good. I'm sure it will be good because it's just a classic. It's just a very classic programme. And yeah, I love watching it, and I find it quite, like, you know, when they put the show back up on Netflix and the millennials decided, oh, we're going to give this a go. And I can see where they've come from, but some of the jokes, I suppose they haven't really aged that well. And I suppose where we do live in a more diverse world now, some of the fat jokes and some of the gay jokes and the lack of diversity in the show, like the all white Friends, very little black people, Asian people come into the show. So yeah, I mean, I can see why some of it hasn't aged that well and why some of the younger audience or younger people of today would watch it and be like, are you guys serious? But it was such a good show. It was such a great show. But you know what it made me did? I can't remember who I was watching. Maybe it was Logan Paul's podcast, perhaps True Geordie's, I'm not sure. But someone was basically talking about Shane Dawson and cancel culture. I think it was Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, actually. I think Mike made the point. They were basically talking about how all of us today are doing things, laughing at things that today are funny, but in 20 years' time might not be. And I suppose the same thing has happened with Friends, like some of the jokes which haven't aged well, and in today's society with the younger generation, they're kind of like, what's with these fat jokes? What's with the gay jokes? That's not funny. That's actually quite rude. It's not inclusive. And somebody was basically, I'm sure it was Mike on the Impulsive podcast, was basically talking about cancel culture. Some things people do need to be cancelled over. So Shane Dawson is definitely one of those people where, you know, making jokes about Willow, Will Smith's daughter, that's wrong. That's always wrong. It's always been wrong. Because she at the time was very young. He's a grown man and he shouldn't be making jokes like that. But there are other times where once upon a time people used to make racist jokes, and to them that was absolutely fine. And it's never been right. Racism has never been right. Being homophobic has never been right. But once upon a time, whether we like it or not, and I'm an Indian person saying this, once upon a time, being a racist was acceptable by the majority, especially in Western society where Caucasians dominated, and they thought it was okay, and they did it in a very blatant way. Whereas racism today, people know racism is wrong, and if they are racist, they'll try and do it in secret. Or if they make a racist comment in public, they're doing it for a reaction. Whereas back in the day, people used to be racist for the sake of being racist because, number one, they were racist. Number two, there were no repercussions of them being racist. So it was almost acceptable to them. And these days, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's never been okay. But the attitude towards it has changed, and the repercussions now exist, whereas back in the day it didn't exist. And that could be said about a lot of things. Once upon a time, like when I was in high school, people used to say, "Oh, you're so gay," but not in like, it wasn't always in a homophobic way, but sometimes it was, and for whatever reason, that was once upon a time accepted for whatever reason. Now, I've never thought about people, like, I don't look at someone and go, you're black, you're white, you're gay, you're female, well, I mean, the genders, I suppose you do look at a bit. But as time has gone on with things like transgender, like just kind of opening up my mind to the different sorts of people, I just don't look at people and define them by their sexuality or by their race. But once upon a time, people did, and that's really, really crazy to think. And I suppose the point that was being made is, what if today we are doing things that in 20 years' time is super, super wrong, and we get cancelled for it? But we don't know we're going to get cancelled for it because right now, in this moment of time, it's okay. Or like the fat jokes on Friends, back then they were funny. But Monica back then, like the way that they push forward, like when they did their kind of, I don't know what it's called, like their rewind episodes where they go back in time and they show Monica when she was younger and supposedly fat. Like, she wasn't even that fat. But back in the days of when Friends was first being aired, everybody laughed. Like, it wasn't like an issue, whereas now it is an issue. And I suppose, we wouldn't cancel Friends, would we? But they've never really pushed it so far where it was blatant kind of body. It wasn't. They never went too far with it, basically, to a point where they were pushing the boundaries and being on the wrong side of the law. But yeah, I cancel culture is really weird, and I don't know. I don't know. Like, the whole thing with Shane Dawson, I know what I'm trying to say, but I feel like I just can't articulate it. But some people deserve to be cancelled and other people don't. But we all need to be aware that when we put ourselves online, chances are you're going to say something that feels acceptable in that moment, right now. And once you put it online, it's always online. And in 10, 20 years' time, it might not be okay anymore. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've made that clear or if I've articulated that properly. But you need to know what that boundary is. And I think some people go a bit too far just for the views or just for the likes or just for the laughs, and really, really tinker, get really close, unbelievably close to what's lawful and what isn't, what's humane and what isn't, what's right and what's wrong. Like Logan Paul did it when he went into the forest. He saw an opportunity to get like a shock factor, and he was just so into the likes and the views that he didn't consider humanity until it backfired on him. Now, whether or not he's genuinely sorry for what he did, only he knows. But I think ultimately that's how that happened for him. He just got so caught up in being the biggest YouTuber out there that he pushed the boundaries just way too much. And I think Shane Dawson has done that a lot and tried to be a bit too out there, tried too hard to be funny, tried too hard for the likes, and it's backfired massively. And I think kind of those two as if I use those two as an example, they are definitely two people who went too far and did deserve to be cancelled. Logan Paul seems to have made a recovery from it. I don't know if Shane Dawson will. But, we'll see. I've kind of gone off tangent a bit. This was supposed to be about the return of TV shows, but I guess the whole thing with Friends and some of their jokes not aging properly just kind of prompted that thought in my head. If there's any shows that have kind of gone into pause or lockdown that you guys really enjoyed, or that was supposed to start a production for the next series that's been delayed, let me know in the comments below as well. And until next time, I will see you soon. Take care, guys. Bye.